Hello. We'll wait just a little bit to get started. Let me turn off my streams here. All right, looks like we're going. Wait till I see a hello from someone. DCD is typing. Hi, Scott and Deep Divers. All right, hello everybody. Hello Beata as well. This is a deep dive. I'm Scott. I work for Adafruit and I work on CircuitPython. Adafruit is an open source hardware and software company based out of New York City. I work for them remotely from Seattle here. Adafruit is in New York. What should I say? If you want to support them and me, you can go to adafruit.com, purchase hardware there. CircuitPython is a version of Python that runs on little tiny computers called microcontrollers. So here's an example of one. So this is a development board, is what it's called, and it's meant to make it easy to interface with the microcontroller that's here. So Adafruit designs microcontroller boards and provides all sorts of things that you can interact with from them, and has tutorials at learn.adafruit.com on how you can use these. So the way CircuitPython works is it's running on this little computer here. You plug in a USB, and on this one at least, it'll show up as a CircuitPy drive. And there's a code.py file on there, and all you do is you edit it with a text editor, you hit save, and it reruns. It's super quick to get programming. And the code that is human readable lives on the device itself. So you don't need any complicated IDE if you don't want. No complicated editor. You could just edit the file on it, and everything else is on the device. So that's CircuitPython. This is a deep dive. Like I said, I'm Scott. I go by TanNewt online. Deep dives tend to be 2 hours of just me working on whatever I've been working on. And I'm happy to answer questions that folks have. I'm a little under the weather. So I have a 2.5-year-old in daycare, so I get a little bit of gunk from him. So I think he's a little under the weather too. So I may not go the 2 hours if my voice really craps out on me. But I've been working on CircuitMatter, which is a Python-only implementation of the Matter protocol. This is like probably my 5th deep dive about it. And so I'm just continuing to work on that. I just remembered I should also say there's a Discord server over here, the middle one. You can go to the URL adafru.it/discord to join that. We have a deep divers role. And the neat thing about that is that I can message you and let you know what's going on. I am expecting my second child in the next few weeks. So this may be my last deep dive if the kiddo comes early. Otherwise, I'll hopefully make it next week as well. We'll see. But I will let the deep divers know when it's switched over, and then kind of hand it off to Foamy Guy, who does deep dives, fills in for me on deep dives, and he'll be able to tell you whether he's planning on doing it or not. Yeah, so I'm still in CircuitMatter land. I guess I did fix a few CircuitPython bugs over the week. We're getting closer and closer to getting 9.2 released. Dan did a beta last night, so that's good. We always have this problem, or we know it's time to release another release when we're constantly recommending people use the absolute newest, because you can actually use CircuitPython like as new has been checked in. And so if we find ourselves doing that, we know, oh, it's time to actually do a new release. So check that out. If you're using CircuitPython, try that 9.2 beta 1, and let us know how it goes. If you find issues, please file a bug, and we'll get those fixed. I'm working on CircuitMatter, which is hard to type because I've been typing CircuitPython for 8 years. But CircuitMatter is an implementation of Matter IoT spec. So Matter is designed to be a cross company platform or standard for IoT devices. One in the background here, for example, is this light strip here is Matter connected. So on my phone from my Apple Home app, I can change the color. Actually, maybe I could just turn it off and on to prove. So here's Apple Home, a couple plugs. The plugs are my desktop, so I don't want to do that. But let's see if I might have crashed it. I've been using it for testing. It says that the light strip is updating. I'm not going to turn off and on the computers, but it doesn't look like the light strip actually likes me. We'll see. So this is the Apple Home app. Oh, at home with Apple. Oh, I hit a page. This is the Apple Home app, and in theory, if we implement a Matter device, we could use this or the Google equivalent. Samsung has an equivalent too. So that's the pitch, is that we could have Adafruit devices that you program in CircuitPython that run CircuitMatter and get on the interface with these big home automation systems. Home Assistant has Matter support as well. That's the kind of open source version. So I've been working on a pure Python implementation, and I'm actually starting just on my desktop, so I'm not actually doing CircuitPython yet, with the hope that like once I do it in desktop Python, we can start to port it over to CircuitPython and add the things that I've used that don't exist in CircuitPython yet. So that'll be a driver for future CircuitPython work, for example. Couple hellos. Hello, Retired Wizard. Hello, Timonsku. And Hams Labs, hello, says, Matter is great, but internally it's complicated. Yes, it is complicated. Zarnlen asks, is Matter related to the Zigbee protocol? So it's related to Zigbee. So I've never done Zigbee, so I don't know actually, I don't know the Zigbee protocol itself, but there are references to it in the Matter spec. Because the people that created the Zigbee spec are involved in the Matter spec. In fact, the Matter spec is shepherded by the people that used to be it used to be called the Zigbee Alliance, and they've renamed it to like CS CSA. I don't know what it stands for, but it's similar people. So there's a lot of references to the older Zigbee protocol, Zigbee spec. I should say that the transport. So there's a couple ways that the Matter protocol can be carried between devices. They standardize on IPv6, so UDP packets over IPv6. That can either be carried by just normal Wi-Fi or Ethernet, but it can also be carried by a protocol called Thread, which is not quite Zigbee, but kind of fills that same role of like you want to be super low power mesh network sort of thing, but Matter is done sometimes over Thread. Other times it can be just done over Wi-Fi. And that's what we're targeting first with CircuitPython is Wi-Fi based. Theoretically, it won't be too hard to add support for Thread underneath kind of the Matter protocol stuff, but we haven't done it yet, so who knows how tough that would be. So yeah, in heritage is related to Zigbee. It is not, it doesn't actually reference parts of the Zigbee spec in terms of like importing them directly. So I can never remember exactly what I was talking about the week before. But a lot of what I've been working on is really focusing on getting my Apple Home working with my test code. And I've got to the point where it says it's commissioned, which is good, but it's crashing. And by it, I mean, like, I think it's my home. So I have a HomePod MIDI here in the room with me, and it is called a hub. I think the term is they use a hub. Let's go to the desktop because there's a really good resource that I think is worth talking about when it comes to Matter. So here's the repo. If you want to follow along, I push straight to main. So it's very much in flux, but you can go to github.com/adafruit/CircuitMatter. And you can see I pushed yesterday. I have not pushed today, but I will before I leave. This is also how I back up, and it also is like, in case I have a baby and I disappear, at least all my code is off my computer, and folks can pick it up if they want to. So if you want to follow along, check out this Adafruit CircuitMatter repo. And then talking about hubs. Eve Home is a manufacturer of Matter, and they have a really good reference for what hubs have what features. So I'll just dump this link in the chat, and I'll show you why I like it so much. So I was talking a little bit about how Matter can be carried over Wi-Fi or Thread, and that's one thing that they talk about here. So Hams Labs has a question, and I should say I love questions. Even if they take me off topic, I'm more than happy to answer them. But this one's on topic. Hams Labs says, what's the simplest way to build a Matter hub? I'd like to set my mother up on her iPad, but she doesn't have an Apple device that plays the role of a hub, a HomePod or Apple TV, so I'd like to build something. You're not going to like my advice, but my advice would be just buy a HomePod Mini, because I think HomePod Minis are like $100. Hello, Florian. Zarlin says, is the Apple Home related to Google Home and Android? So I think they both work with Matter, but they're separately implemented. But I think Google Home should work with Matter as well. I haven't tried that yet. This is the Nest Hub v2, and I've been meaning to get to test one with that as well. Oh, they call it a Matter controller. So this page is a really good reference for hubs, because Matter controller is the thing that does all of the management stuff. And then the thread border router is the thing that can establish a thread, and then a thread network, and then bridge that onto your IP network, your Wi-Fi, right? That's what they mean by border router, is that there's like a thread network, and the border router is what connects that thread network into your Wi-Fi or your local network. And so here they have examples of Matter controllers with thread border router. So if you're buying something new, I would recommend one of these things. I have one of these HomePod Minis, which is $100, I think. And then the Nest Hub 2nd Gen is also $100. So either of those would work. Those are kind of what I'd recommend. I actually forgot that I have a 1st Gen Apple TV 4K, so I can't actually do that. But if we scroll down, it's just all the fun stuff you do is Apple related. I would like to see Android given equal time. I don't use Android. I have a Pixel 3a that's probably dead. I do use Google Home, and I just haven't tried it yet. But I do intend on getting like a Google Home here that I can test with it as well. I've seen them on sale for $50, and I'm kind of waiting for that. And the Apple stuff doesn't work as well. Supermath points out that GitHub has a thread border router. That's the SDK for it. They also have a dev board for being a border router. I wouldn't use it. And in fact, I don't know what the requirements for, like, if you want Apple Home to work, I don't know if you could get a Google Home and use the Apple Home app with it. I don't know how that would work. It's a little weird. Like at home, I don't have the HomePod. I only have the HomePod Mini here. I don't have it at home, but I do have a Nest Hub 2nd generation, and I wasn't able to use Apple Home to get a Matter device over Thread working with Apple Home via the Nest Hub. I think the app that you're going to use for it still has to pair with the like controller that you're using, I think, which is, I was disappointed by, but I think that's life. I've only got so much time in the day. The gateway can be purchased here. I will copy that link and pull it up. $10, nice. Did I order one of those? I think I have stuff in my cart still. I think I did. So it's interesting that even with Espressif, you need a 2-chip solution. One does Wi-Fi and one does Thread. So both Zigbee and Thread are based on 802.15.4. And so this is an S3 with an H2 to do the Thread side. I have not used it. I don't know how to set it up. I'll tell you, I've had a huge, it's been a huge pain using ESP-Matter. But yeah, let me know how this goes. It could work just fine. I haven't tried it. But yeah, this is a great resource for like compatibility with everything. Eve thermal control. I thought I got this, but the one that I have is older and it doesn't have Matter support or something. I got it used off Amazon. Okay, so ask questions if you have them. I'll show you where I'm at. I just reran it right before I started this stream. So yeah, so Toddbot says, ooh, I hadn't seen Dunder main before. So in my repo here, I have CircuitMatter, and then I'll close these, and I have a Dunder main. Nice, there you go. And so this is what gets run when I do the -m, is that it goes here. It says, ooh, do I have a replay file? And then it calls the run function, which if there's a replay file, it puts sockets and MDNS and random things that take from the JSON and produce like what came in before. So this is really helpful. My general flow is that I run it without the replay file, which records to a replay file. And then when I want to rerun it, I just go up until I have the file in there again, so that I don't have to get the other side of the connection going at all. Like I don't have to use the app. I don't have to rerun the command line thing that kind of like got things going. This has been really, really helpful. So for example, if we look at my history, I just ran it and I did it manually with Apple Home device, but now I hit this not implemented error. If I want to get there again, I can just go up again, and now I'm giving it with the recorded packets, and I get the same thing, but now I didn't have to do the Apple Home side. Yeah, I need to look at that. So Toddbot says, if you're in the Swift space, the new embedded Swift effort has some Matter examples now that run on ESP32C6. I was very curious. I want to actually look at this, because one thing I haven't fully settled on is actually how people will use CircuitMatter. So let's just take a look at how their LED blink works. Partitions, SDK config. This is all ESP stuff, boilerplate stuff. And then main.swift says, at main, hello from embedded Swift. We start an LED, we set the color, we set the brightness. While true, we say we toggle, and if it's toggled, we do a random hue. So this must helper object that can be used to control that LED. Enable brightness and color properties, immediately propagate those to the physical LED. I don't see how this is matter connected at all. It's just both? What do you think bridging header is? I guess maybe that's, we need to do this smart light example to see what does this, oh, okay, let's start from the main. Okay, so we create a matter root node. Stepped out for a bit. Are you looking for example for matter for other embedded libraries? Yeah, I'm just looking at what Toddbot was linking. Get it in my brain for the weekend of thinking about how I want to. Yeah, I'm there, Todd. I know there's a delay. Thanks for the smart light link. Oh, interesting. Okay, so you create a root node, and then you create an extended color light, and you give it the root node, and then you have an event handler where you get an attribute and a value. Huh. On, off, level control, color control, color control, color control. Add the endpoint to the node. Root node, add endpoint, light endpoint. That seems like you don't need to do that if you gave it the root node as well. And then you provide the node to a matter application and start it. And then it must be, oh, interesting. There's a bug there. It's interesting. So I've kind of combined these two things. And they must be doing multi-threading. And then what does LED look like? Oh, okay. So this is still not there. LED set power. This is the same. Okay. And then what's this matter directory? Oh, Nordic's got an example too. It's probably C though. Extension, protocol, root node. All right, I'll take a look at it. Huh. Addicted to dark mode. Amazon also has a thread router Zigbee board. Okay. Copy link. I'm not very inspired by the Swift thing. It's interesting because there's, in Matter itself, when you turn something on and off, it's commands, which are like equivalent to function calls. So I was thinking you'd implement on and you'd implement off. Okay. Zephyr light bulb. YAML, YAML, YAML. YAML. Stuff that's not designed to be read on GitHub. Source. Let's look at source. App task. Lightbulb.matter. Okay, this is just a copy and paste out of the main. Starts the app. Okay. No, that's default app task. Identify start, identify stop. So these are like callbacks. Trigger effect timer callback, event handler. Trigger identify event handler. So this is another event handler. No, that's, so these are kind of like function calls. Button event handler. Action initiated. Update cluster state. So in app task init, you initialize the matter stack. Attribute persistence provider, that's probably a good idea. Trigger effect timer. Initialize the lighting. K light endpoint ID. I don't know. I don't really understand it. It's interesting. I'm having trouble knowing whether you're controlling one or not. There's an extra word for the router that gives it Ethernet. Zap matter files, if that's useful. Yeah, I know they exist, but I really haven't. I know I could use them at some point, but one challenge with using files like that to generate APIs and stuff is that, like, your docs, you may not actually have like Python style docs. I've just been hand programming the cluster stuff as I need it, as I have shown in previous weeks, which I will probably do today as well. But it feels like a lot of boilerplate. It's kind of my initial reaction. I don't know. Okay, so I ran into this problem that I'm hitting something I haven't implemented before, and I suspect that it's like a resume. I might have my HomePod in a bad state. I might actually need to reset it. We'll see. I wonder if I could put it in a debug state. That would be cool too. Wired Ethernet, the baseboard, it does Wi-Fi. Yeah, I definitely like Ethernet connected things. I'm like, I had a little bit of a like, oh, I want a new Apple TV just for this. And then I was like, wait, like this one works just fine. I even bought the like new remote to use with the old Apple TV. So I have the new remote, which is one of the main features of it. Oh, you know, I was thinking maybe I would just implement this thing that's not implemented if I could, but I probably can't. But let's find where I'm hitting this not implemented error, which is in session 503. If resumption ID is not none. Okay, so where are we at? We are in session establishment. I've gotten pretty good at knowing my way around this. This doc. So I think what's interesting is that I think that the way that Apple Home works is that the phone establishes a connection with the device, and then it also establishes a connection between the HomePod Mini and the device. So it's actually doing like, it adds two different networks or fabrics to it. And this is where it has just switched over. I don't know why it thinks it's able to resume. So here's session resumption. So resumption does not require expensive signature creation and verification, which significantly reduces the computation time. Session resumption should be used by initiators when the necessary state is known to the initiator. Both the optional resumption ID and the initiator resume MIC fields populated. I actually just want to figure out how to... So this is why it's not implemented, is that this is filled out. In the case where a responder is not able to resume a session as requested... Oh, so we can just ignore it. Maybe I'll just ignore it. Let's just print there and see what happens. So now if we run this, we should run out of data to replay with, and I'm going to use my phone. Let's see. Oh, I think I can. My light's finally turned off, turned on, turned off, turned on. Something must have come back. Let's see if we can break it again. Okay, so I'm QR code scanning. I'm going to hit. I wonder if you can follow along. So I can't see what I'm doing. Add home. And then it's going to say, are you sure? And I'm going to hit add anyway. And it kind of crashes. See, look, like all the state of all the devices went away. So I think I'm actually, I think I'm crashing the HomePod Mini. Great. That's what I want. I wonder if I could get console logs for a HomePod Mini. This is as far as I got before. Let's see. Let's go back. So we received the case Sigma 1. It didn't try to resume. And now we're getting commissioning complete. And now it's crashing. So the other theory I had as to why it's crashing. So I thought I was returning an empty serial number. I thought that might have been the case. There's no indication. So it's just a read on this new session. Received standalone ACK. Session ID 0. Received status response on 3/14/944. So it did say, I think that's this new session. 14/944. So whatever it's doing after it reads the serial number, it's crashing. And the thing I actually wanted to do was do a user label, which I think I am doing now. I think I do have a user label here. So there are certain clusters I think that are required that I'm not providing yet. And so that's my working theory, is that it's trying to think about something that I said I didn't have. Okay, so there is a user label cluster, which is good. Although I think we're supposed to have a user label cluster on the next endpoint as well for the light itself. So maybe we'll add a second one there. So device type, and we're an on-off, and I need to do from import base. Let's call it base. Does that make sense? Base. Does that match? Base device. Okay. So now, new file, base device.py, and we're going to be a class base device. No, that's not right at all. We do want an init, but we're going to ignore these crazy prompts. And we're going to say self-servers. And let's take a look at not this, but the device library specification. Any questions about this? Each Matter device type implementation shall include these clusters as a minimum set. So this is why I'm adding a base device type. And in fact, maybe I should call it a simple device. I think they have some notion of device type class conditions. Classed as a simple device. So maybe I have, I'm using a lot of inheritance here. Node app, simple dynamic as a simple in the client. They don't talk about what client means. Okay, maybe we just consider it a simple one for now, and let's say and self dot user. Actually, let's just not do the underscore. Okay, so now we need to actually, let's just say it's a simple device. I think that's a little bit clearer. It's nice I don't have to implement resume. I just, if I don't crash. And then on off now needs to do not this. We do a super init. And I have the descriptor going. And there's an add device call in here. And it adds a descriptor cluster, but I don't think I want to do that. Instead, I want to cut that. And I'm going to make it a part of this simple device. So we're going to say from CircuitMatter import data model. And there's some stuff in data model I want to move. So oh no, I don't want those. I'm going to use multi-cursor to do self dot. parts list. Oh, next endpoint we don't have. Device type ID and revision should be set because we should be actually a subclass. This is an abstract top level one. So that looks pretty good. Although the parts list thing we need, so maybe what I'll do is I'll say Z. The only thing that I'll do is I'll say device descriptor parts list append. Like, hey, you're on this endpoint number. Everything else gets initialized. Server list append. Server cluster ID. We could actually do that ourselves. It's fine. We won't do it ourselves now, because we're going to need this loop here anyway. So this is when the recording is really good, just to make sure that I didn't, yeah, see, so I like messed something up. Root node object has no attribute descriptor, and that's because it doesn't have the new inheritance yet. So if we go in device types, utility, root node, and now we need to say that it is not a cluster, but a simple device. Which I don't actually know if that's true. Baby steps. I should delete these prints, they're in the way. Oh, and now root node's not calling the superclass like it should. Name user label is not defined. Okay. So that is in simple device, and we need to say from CircuitMatter clusters dot device management. I don't remember where it is. System model. Sorry. One more. Sorry for the sneezes. I really need a cough button. All right, now we got to the end. But more importantly, also we are thanks, a cat. Access control, basic information, user label, descriptor and user on endpoint 0, and we should see those on endpoint 1 as well. No? This is subscribing to everything. We should be iterating over endpoints too. Oh, I guess we're not. Cluster 33 not found on endpoint 1. And then it's breaking. That's not right. So it does this read. I didn't talk about this last week. I think maybe I got to the point where I was doing subscribe, but the first thing Apple Home does pretty early on is it says, give me everything. Like, give me all of your attribute state. And maybe that's what I'm not doing, is that it's like initializing its entire cache, but I'm not actually giving it everything in the cache that it needs. So maybe that's what's happening. And the reason that is happening is what? That's part of the subscribe. Subscribe request. For every path in it, we do this read attribute path. Read attribute path. And then we say, if endpoint is none, then set it to all of the endpoints. If cluster, if path.cluster is none, then we say, otherwise we hit this cluster not found. But we're, shouldn't we, cluster 33 not found on endpoint 1. But we should be, cluster is none. Oh, but look, we're overwriting path.cluster. That's a problem. Path.copy. Well, it's not really a concrete path either. Yeah, my iteration is wrong. Oh, you know what? We can call this cluster path. And then maybe what we do is we do or temporary path, because we could actually do it here. Path.copy doesn't exist, but this is a case where it's like, oh yeah, it does kind of make sense to call it that, or have that. Don't need to be a copy. We can get rid of this. Temp path. Temp path. And maybe we should do copy in at the highest level, because path is a list. Let's see what error we get here when the copy is called. Attribute path IB has no attribute copy. So we go to attribute path IB. It's an interaction model. And it's a TLV list. So what we could do is we could, we're going to need proper copying. I think it's worth it, because we're going to have this problem. Items and values. Encode from value. Def copy. Self returns a... It doesn't return a list, it returns a subclass. So I don't know how to do that. And in fact, I guess what I do is I do new equals type of self. Which actually, I don't know if that would work. It will in this case, we don't have that. And then we do new.items.extend self items and new dot values update self dot values. So this is putting them into the existing lists, items and values. I think that's right. None type object. Oh, I didn't return it. I don't know if that's the right Python idiom for it or not. Okay, great. So we are getting further, and these are the sorts of errors I've been fighting for a while. I'm going to delete this set old value new version thing. My version stuff is not right now. I was debugging something else, I think, and it's just not, it's too noisy for what I'm doing at the moment. Instance data version is, it's a global data version for the whole cluster, which might actually be correct. I don't know. So what we're doing here is, so this is part of this bulk read. And now we're getting to endpoint 1, which is good. So we got endpoint 1's descriptor cluster. And now we're doing, we did the user label cluster, the identify cluster, and now we're on to on-off. But we're like trying to encode startup on-off, but it's not encoding correctly. And that can be like it's missing a default value, or it should actually be able to be null, but it's not marked as being able to be null. So let's take a look at the cluster spec, which is the third document that I've been opening. And let's find start up on off. So here you can see that this ZLO, I think, is in reference to Zigbee stuff. So like, okay, this attribute shall define the desired startup behavior of a device when it's supplied with power. If the value is null, the on-off attribute is set to its previous value. Otherwise, the behavior is defined there. Default MS. I don't know what that means. Quality XN. X is nullable, I think, and N is non-volatile. So if we pull up our on-off cluster, no, that's the on-off device. The on-off cluster, startup on-off is actually also N for non-volatile. Oh, that was not right. Oh, come on. Non-volatile equals false, and X for nullable. And that needs to be true. This is true, not false. So I've added, in the spec, they have these like single character things. I've added keyword args that have that single character and the explanation of what it is in there. So now it should be able to encode it as null. So if we look back up here, we can see, okay, we got identify. Oh, we got so close. So now startup on off is encoding, it's still returning none, but it's encoding correctly instead. So let's give this another shot. So this is the live version. That's why I have my phone out. And my HomePod might be in dire straits still. There we go. Found the QR code, hit add to home. It'll ask next to We're dropping a message. I never got the reply. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I never got it. Okay, I'm just gonna exit it and try again. Should be able to get further than that. Okay, now I hit add anyway, adding to home, and it crashed. Darn it. And it says, no home hub found. So like, that's why I'm like, I'm really, really messing it up. Another thing that I need to add, somewhere. Is it in the defaults? Root node, power source, bridge node, base device type, cluster requirements, binding. So this is, I think, the other thing that we might be missing is a binding server. So this is for every device type. And so let's add the binding one. And I think that I've defined it already. I just need to do the simple device. Let's put it first, self-binding, binding equals binding. Cluster. Self-servers append. Come on, Copilot. All right, I'll type it out. I do find myself doing that, of like pausing to see if Copilot will do it for me. I think it's also in system model. Yeah. I should sort it, but well. So this is me just making sure that it ran, which it doesn't. So in binding cluster, I guess I could put it up there. Trying to set up the environment and getting a permission error on git clone expressif git at github.com. That can happen if you're not set up for SSH access locally. You might need to switch to using the HTTPS version. Retired wizard. Got unexpected keyword arguments. That's because I need to do this as a list attribute. Packinto requires a buffer of at least 1193 bytes for packing 1 byte at offset 1192. So this is the, okay, I just need to catch this other error. This is how I'm implementing chunking. And I guess it's actually in interaction model. Chunked message. Oh, it's not chunked message, it is an array. Remember. Ah, that worked for Retired Wizard. Great. So now when we catch value errors, index errors, and now we need to catch struct error. So basically this is trying to fill up as much as we can, and then when we can't anymore, we raise a special exception that carries our array state. It's a little funky. It's basically like in a single case, I want to return 2 things instead of 1. So in array member, you say, hey, I want to encode the value into this buffer. And if you don't have enough room in the buffer, what do? Well, you could just crash, but now we actually have this array encoding error that says, hey, I was on this index and at this offset. I actually set the end of the container. So basically, like, I'm raising an exception, but I partially worked. And then in the interaction model chunked message, I say, hey, look, I'm encoding something. And oh, if it does an array encoding error, then we capture its offset, we get the tag, and we truncate the value. So if we encoded 10 things of 20, we take the 10 that we encoded out, and then we mark this flag MoreChunkedMessages, and then we're done, and we succeed. So basically, like, as you're chunking, you're taking one big message and you're encoding as much of the array as you can, removing it, and then you try to encode it again and again and again until the MoreChunkedMessages doesn't actually get flagged. I had to add this ability that the spec says that MoreChunkedMessages is omitted when it's false and set when it's true. So I actually have to be able to delete something so that it doesn't exist, which is great. Great fun. So now we should capture it and we should split. But we didn't. Did I not save it? I did. Encode into member. Encode value into. Do I need to do all of this? Probably. The simplest thing is to do all of it, I think. Clever chunking heuristic. We'll see if I can get it working. But yeah, I was like, I think it's okay if I just destroy it. But you have to leave enough room to be able to fill everything after it out. What are we encoding at this point? All right, I've got to have some more prints. In data model, interaction model, we say we're splitting, but now let's print encoding. That might have been something a print I've had before. So now we are at 1190. And we're trying to encode interaction model revision. And we're like super close. Why didn't we leave enough room to do that? 1193 bytes. I mean, we're off by 1. Oh, this number, I think we only want to do it if it's an array. We want to, this was me trying to like, message. if descriptor class maybe we should be a little more explicit. Is subclass of TLV array do this. Hello, AE. I don't know actually how to pronounce that. This doesn't have to go into the sub buffer. And this buffer, the offset is the same because the sub buffer is a prefix. They like start at the same place. Maybe creating a lot of memory views. arg1 must be a class. Did that before. I wonder if that helps me. I've forgotten what I was doing. Oh, I was adding bindings. So now I'm getting an array encoding error outside of catching it. Which distro is it? This is, I run Arch Linux. That's the distribution that I run. Print. I don't know why this didn't work. Name. This is why the replay stuff is really nice. It is an array member. Oh, it's not a class. Is instance. There we go. So we got to the point where we run out of replay data, which is what we want. Let's take a quick look and see that we've got, let's see, have we tested once we had everything? Reading endpoint 1 on off. Now we have binding clusters, which is good. Let's delete these prints. This print. Make it a little quieter. And now let's see what happens. Hopefully the HomePod mini started up again. Maybe the whole thing's not crashing. Maybe it's just the... Add to home, add anyway, adding to home, and then it crashed. Darn it. And it says, no home hub again. Huh. Same place. It's not even trying to do something to us, so we can't tell like what we haven't implemented. Maybe what we do is we Let's copy this test data to the Apple recorded packets. So if we want to rerun it without doing that, we can. Let's try it with Circuit, or with Matter.js, just JS like we were last time. So do I remember how to do this? npm run. That's not what I want. I want shell. We have shell history. I'm going to do another live run, but this time I'm going to do it with oh, we crashed. That'll work. Well, let's fix that. One day we won't crash. So none array member isn't set and not nullable or optional, which is interesting because we're reading endpoint. So it is nice that it's doing a bulk read. Did it do it as a subscribe? No, it's just doing a big read there. Oh, it did do a subscribe. Okay, so it's doing the same thing, except it hasn't written the ACL yet. Apple writes the ACL. Oh, it's just so preposterous. Okay. Where's my... I'm being a little bit stricter than I was originally. About encoding things correctly, so that's part of the reason. Okay, so let's try it again. The one I'm deleting is the node ID, because I think it picks a random number. Maximum call stack size exceeded. Oh, I crashed it. Interesting. Why did I get it to recurse somehow? Am I encoding something wrong? Processing message. Splitting attribute reports. Processing message. Huh. Maximum call stack size. Device type code with 256 and revision 3 not supported. Some data might be unknown. It's funny, maximum call stack size, and it's not that deep. Received attribute updates. Oh, lighting feature map should probably be on. There's some errors. Hey, we hit a maximum call stack size again there. Unexpected type 20. Okay, so it looks like there's... Maybe my chunking isn't working. It could be that. Are you recursing in your error handler? What code is issuing the call stack size message? The call stack size message is the JavaScript. JavaScript is having a problem. But multiple values were returned. Received data report chunk with 17 attributes. Decoding attribute 0, 31, 0. I think that might be that I don't have it implemented, something like that. So let's take a look at the logs on our side. Cluster 31 not found on endpoint 1. For the ESP, Retired Wizard says, thanks, Scott. Dinner bell. Have a good dinner. I'll have to catch the rest of tonight as a replay. Once I get CircuitMatter set up, I have a Samsung Hug that supports Matter, so I was wondering if I could test against that. Let me know. I make no promises that it works. I'd be curious to see. There is a caveat on the Matter.js thing. It's about Samsung. Something about test devices. Let's see. Fully working. Okay. Yeah, Akara and Yandex don't allow test devices. Thought the stack trace you showed was from Python. I don't think so. Oh, well, the keyboard interrupt is, but these errors are not. Error decoding attribute 31.0 and 3E0. Which one is 3E? Attribute data decoder. '31 is network commissioning. Not a list, but multiple values were returned. 31.0. Network. Commissioning cluster. Max networks. The JavaScript, they're both running locally on my computer. Yeah, I have two tabs here. So Python, JavaScript. This feels like an encoding error. Actually, here's the payload. Although I think what I want is I want to print. I'll just print in in array member. No, 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 not an array member. In get report. I think is one of those. No? Where do I? Actually, maybe it's here. Attribute report IB. Attribute data. Or pen reports. Get attribute data. If it's empty, that could be it. Do. And once again, we can just use the recording to see how this is impacted by that. Max Networks 1. So it's not through there. Oh, I wonder if this is the path thing. No, actually, no. I'm doing a new path. Let's do it as they're doing it. Endpoint, cluster, as a hex and an attribute. Yeah, so let's do a hex. Do. Oh. I'm like, wait, why did we stop that soon? I had to sneeze again. Oh, I almost got it. Terrible. I don't know why folks watch me sneeze into the microphone. Did I name cluster? Did I not name that one right either? This is what I get when... The first one I didn't name right, and then it mimicked me to not name the second one right. There we go. Okay, so... It was complaining about... 3E. It was complaining about 310 being in as multiple values. But that doesn't seem right, because 0401 is control octet in the value itself. So that's how you would encode a 1. I wonder if we look here and it has this encoding problem. Attribute is not a list, but multiple values were returned. Oh, this could be if. Oh, that's how they encode lists. If it's a list, you do an empty list and then you do the individual elements, I think, so that you can chunk them. I suspect that this multiple values thing is that my chunking's not correct. How could I see that? What does Adafruit have to emulate a sneeze mute button? I don't know. I would just have to figure out how to set a button to mute my OBS. All right, we got about 30 minutes. I feel like I'm close, but I'm going to TLD array member print I'm going to print it every time and see what I see. Like, am I accidentally like double including things? Here I am reading and making the list. And then it says splitting. Huh. I should be calling this code. Oh, I'm returning. Print. Print the thing that I'm calling print on. Maybe I should call it toString or something. Okay, so here's one. Is endpoint 0 cluster 51 attribute that. And my guess is 51 is 3E. And if we look at I feel like I'm not rewinding enough. Like I'm double including something. Like my chunking's not right. And I don't have any unit tests for it, even though I should probably add some because it's complicated. That is a good task for 20 minutes on a Friday. Let's figure out how to write a unit test for this chunking because it's complicated. So we're gonna do interaction model message tests, and we're just gonna do a new test, new file, test chunked message.py. And we're going to say from CircuitMatter import interaction model class test chunking def init or only one. We're going to test chunking 1. We're going to test chunking 2 chunks and maybe 3 chunks. Def 3 chunks. I know I'm not using it. And then how do I... Does that add test, or do I have to have test as the part of the... Okay, well, I'm failing an array encode already, which is a bad sign. And I didn't end up running my test file at all. Okay, this is just tests. Could you just make the chunk array buffer bigger? So I might be able to make the buffer bigger, but I'm limited. So the reason you do chunking is because you're sending a raw UDP packet. So you are limited to 1280 bytes for raw UDP. I'm being a little generous and giving myself a bit of a buffer before that, I think. At least that was my intention. Okay, we did run test chunk messages then. But ultimately there's a limit. Hi Don. Happen to notice the title of this stream. How exciting. I hope this means that CircuitPython does/will support thread 2. So we're starting with Wi-Fi. I'm about to have a baby. So I'm not sure when we'll do thread, but the hope is that thread will be supported. The hope is that thread won't be too hard to support. Somebody actually was poking around with it, but I don't know where they've ended up with it. But yes, working on it. Test. Fill array. Another baby, even more exciting. Yes, it is. I'm excited about it. It's gonna be good. So I think I'll subclass test message, and it's gonna be an interaction model chunked message, and we're gonna have a array equals tlv.array member. We have uint8s, great. And then we're gonna have a value after. It's gonna be I don't think we have int16 members. I think it's making that up. I mean, it's always making stuff up, but I don't think the thing it's making up is correct. Let's just put a this says we want this bool member because that's the one it actually it needs. And then we'll do an init member too. Let's just copy all this. Copy. Look at me, I'm writing a test. More chunked messages. And then actually we will need to do the reverse as well. We'll need to encode. We should fix that array encoding issue as well. Int member none. Sure. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the sneezes. I must be allergic to something. I've been having this throat stuff, and all the sneezes, the windows open, makes me think I should actually go pick up some allergy meds on the way home. Let's call this 1 and 2. And I'm gonna say t equals test message, t.array equals list of range length. That sounds good. And then let's call this after. And since we're doing that weird capitalization, let's do that too. Let's see. Maybe we do 4 octets and we make it somewhat obvious. After is 80AF. And so now what we want to do is we want to say we could just do a buffer of 100. Buff equals byte array 100. Actually, that's probably too many. We could probably test it with a lot smaller. T equals fill array. T dot encode into buff. I think that's what we do, and then assert buff equals empty. Oh, you know what? I think that should work. Except it doesn't. Fixture self not found. Yeah, that's an artifact of before when it was in a class. Okay, so now we only failed encode 1. None times objects. I did this earlier too. I got a return T. Hi, Johnny. Oh, and of course, let's call it a message. It thinks it's a test. Okay, so it did encode something. I am curious about what changed in my array encodings. I should fix that too. Index 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, index 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It turned into 0, 0. That doesn't seem right. 2, 0 is that it's got a... Well, maybe that is right. I'm trying to remember the encoding. When did I break it? It may have been broken for a while. Left contains 20 more items. First extra item is 20. Oh, yeah. Print buff. Oh, I guess we need to do end. What does it return? Okay, 15 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 Adafruit. FFB0. This is the interaction model. Actually, that's nice. We include interaction model. It's funny that we're getting all zeros here, but it's printing off 0, 1, 2, 3. An array of numbers may not work. Because that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to do an array of numbers. But they're not being set. Why is that? It would be an array of structs normally. TLV int member is a number member with integer set. Value type. Shouldn't we set value type still? It's nice that at least our printing is really small. So it does look like it's 4, 6, 8, 10. Weird. It looks like it should be working. This might it might be a bug that explains why the other tests are failing. Like I'm accidentally copying the buffer or something. So I'm like, what happens if I print that? Giant. Here. Oh, look, it is writing it. It is 0, 1, 2. But then I wonder if, you know, it could be that my sub buffer, I bet that's what it is. Where's my sub buffer thing? this assumes it's a memory view, and if it's not, it doesn't work. Otherwise, you get a copy, and if you get a copy, you're writing into the wrong memory. Hey, I fixed the other two errors, but that could explain the crash as well. I just don't have the right data in there. And now, this is still wrong though. Like now it's printing out the memory view, which is correct. But then when it pops out of that, it's doing the same thing. And it's still like, it hasn't written into the memory. Oh, that's so annoying. Like there's some other place that I'm doing the subbuffer thing. Maybe in chunked message. Chunked messages, subbuffer, buffer. Yeah, again, like we assume we're taking in a memory view. And then if we're not, it don't work. That would explain why we fixed one but not the other. And we still won't pass because we're not testing against the right thing. Okay, here we go. So 1.15.6.0.0 da 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 da. And I think what we can do is test our chunk message. We'll print this dot hex, and I wonder if we can do a separator like that, so that we can print it out and copy it. Separator must be length 1. Darn it. Let's do X and we'll fix it. Copy. X, and then what we'll do is I'm really liking the multi-cursor. I finally like, you highlight what you want to select, you do Control D, and you get a multi-cursor out of it. And now I've got a byte string. Think that'll work? It did. So let's see, how many do I need? That's 1. And I wonder what happens if we did copy. Instead of making it longer, let's do 2 shorter buffers. That might be a little small. That may not finish. Index error. Like we need to save, like we kind of hard code how much we save. Okay, so here we did a split. 0 onward. Which doesn't seem right. Did we match 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We picked the exact right length of buffer for that. So can we fit 2 in a buffer of 16? We do 2 buffers of 16. If we just do 2 chunks, we're going to take out 3 and 2. But we're going to have to add a Boolean in here. Packinto requires a buffer of at least 17 bytes for packing 1 byte at offset. So I'm kind of crashing it because I didn't catch this. For packing 1 byte to offset 16. This is probably a good test case to fix. Let's copy this. This stuff is complicated. And we'll make this 17 and see if. Okay, so we still had one fail. I guess, let's rename them. I overwrote one with the other. Okay, they both fail. Byte array index out of range. Yeah, memory views are nice. You create an object, but you don't recopy the buffer. I wonder if I'm like not gonna find. Yeah, okay. Interesting. I've hit like a pathological case where I'm just like not storing enough space. So like both the 17 bytes and then the 19 bytes are saying like, hey, I don't have enough space. Any other questions? I think I'll wrap up. Although pushing something with crashing tests is not great. I'm just gonna Hail Mary it though. Well, let's do the Matter.js version first, because we did fix a bug. Let's see what this says now. Shell run. Commission. Let's see if this has those problems still. It still has the call stack exceeded. Okay, so it's still crashed. And we still got this. Okay, so our chunking still doesn't work. The maximum call stack exceeded thing could be a, like, we're not correctly encoding things. All right, there's work to do here. I probably won't do that this weekend, but I do kind of want to push it. I might push it off the branch. Or I'll just push it up to main. It's broken. Sometimes it breaks. Okay, so let's do a quick overview. It's probably going to be pretty, like, there's not a lot of debug statements I need to remove. So here's Sublime merge. And I'm just going to do a quick go over of changes. So we move the descriptor initialization to the root device, or the base device type. Printing a message, copying path, processing message. Actually, you know, let me do it this way. Stage, 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 stage it all. Write response. I wasn't responding to the write. Now I am. Exchange ID. status. Oh yeah, this setting a null value is crashing me now. Startup on off is non-volatile and nullable. Inspect traceback, pass through the args, the flag arg things. Remove those prints. List attribute wrap enum types in enum member. And process them if they happen. Current fabric index. Nice print, context. Printing args. Nullable. Generally, I think I just want all of this. Root node, more stuff there. General diagnostics and user label cluster. I guess I didn't do binding there, did I? Yes, CircuitPython supports memoryview for sure. And in fact, CircuitPython supports APIs where you would give bytes. CircuitPython is better about taking a memory view than CPython is to minimize copying. Copying buffers. You do when you slice a memory view, you are creating another memory view object, but it's referring to the same buffer. If you did that with a bytes or a byte array, it would actually copy the buffer itself. So not only do you get a new object, but you get a new underlying buffer as well, which is why I'm adding these. Make sure it's a memory view. Hopefully if you do that on a memory view, it just returns the same thing. Okay, so Monday I have some chunking to fix. I'm going to stage the new Apple recorded packets. I'm going to stage the regular. And now I've got a bunch of new files. I'll even do the test that doesn't work. Subscriptions, I don't actually need. I was going to go that route, and I changed my mind. So let's commit it and then get it up. And I got to use the bathroom. So, I'm going to Control-C that. And so I'm going to get another recorded packets. Save that. Git commit. Chunking broken. I don't know why it's installing pre-commit. Lots of formatting. So this has been another deep dive with Scott. Join the Discord at the URL adafru.it/discord if you want to follow along and be notified when I have a baby and will not be deep diving. And Tim will then be able to find folks' data model imported but unused. Yeah, asked to be added to the deep divers role so that you get pinged. We don't do it very often, so don't worry if you're worried about it happening. We really don't ping deep divers that often, but that's a way to stay updated with my state and whether Foamy Guy will be streaming. If you want to support me, you can go to the URL adafruit.com and purchase hardware there. Sign my commit, git push Adafruit main. If you want to follow along and look at this broken commit, you can go to the URL github.com/adafruit/CircuitMatter. Did I get everything? Preemptive thanks to DCD. Usually when they're watching, they do timecodes. So thanks to DCD for timecodes if they're doing that. And sorry for all the sneezes. I'm going to go get some allergy meds on my way home. And have a great rest of your day. I'll see you maybe. I was going to say hopefully, but I don't know. I'd be okay having a baby. I'll let you know about next week. Probably because the due date is not for till the 28th. So we have 17 days until the due date. So likely we'll deep dive next week. Thanks, everybody.